Welcome to another edition of Radio Influencers, a podcast series we're doing for Radio Update. I'm your host, Andy Meadows. I just got back from the Texas Association of Broadcasters annual convention held last Wednesday and Thursday in Round Rock, Texas, just north of Austin. As usual, it was an amazing convention. Lots of great networking, learning, not to mention food and some fun there at Kalahari Resort. You can read my full TAB 2025 highlights recap right now on Radio Update. For today's episode, I'm going to share one of the two panels I moderated at TAB. This one is about extending your brand online with some incredible panelists, RJ Ochoa with SB Nation and Blogging the Boys, Jim Sherwood, Skyrocket Radio, John Reynolds with Middlin Creative, and the host of our Video Tips and Tricks series here at Radio Update, and our Persuading for Profits podcast host, Brent Hoodenpyle. On next week's episode, I'll share the other panel, Big Time Content on a Small Time Budget. But first, let's look at our Radio Update poll responses. In last week's Weekly Wire poll, we played off a great digital article by Jim Sherwood, Want to Sell Digital? Be Your First Client, by asking, are your radio station websites an afterthought? No was the top answer with 52.8%, but 47.2% admitted that yes, their station websites are in fact an afterthought. Bad sign that almost half say that, but it's a good sign that at least they admit it. Now let's get into today's episode. If you have any thoughts or questions after watching or listening, email them to me at andy@radiostationconsultant.com or editor@radioupdate.com, and I'll answer them to the best of my ability. Thank you. So I've been tasked with also introducing us. I'm Andy Meadows. I'm a radio consultant based here in Texas. I'm in DFW. I live in Frisco. Radio and digital consultant. I consult stations all over the country. Programming is a focus, but also a lot of digital stuff as well. And I do have a 24/7 engineering service, so I can help you on that front too. I'm an author, I'm a speaker, a podcaster. I've got a Radio Influencers podcast I do every week for Radio Update that is all about radio, so I talk to other radio folks as well. Lifelong radio broadcaster, and I'm the chief editor for Radio Update. It's an online publication for radio that we started last March, a year ago March, so if you haven't seen that yet, make sure you check it out. And we have some amazing panelists today. Guy I'm a big fan of because I'm also a Cowboys super fan like he is, RJ Ochoa with SB Nation. He is the editor-in-chief of SB Nation's Dallas Cowboys website, host of Blogging the Boys podcast, and he does the YouTube lives you've probably seen after the Cowboys game. He jumps on and does instant analysis. We'll show you a clip of that here in a minute. It's incredible. Thank you so much for joining us. And he's a Dallas Cowboys expert. So bend his ear about all things Cowboys. And we have a former Cowboys player here, too. You can bend his ear about Cowboys as well. And then John Reynolds, a man I've known for at least 15 years. And I'm proud to say is moving back to Texas. We got him back. He's the owner of Middlin Creative and South Bend Locals. Right now he's in South Bend, Indiana, but he's coming back to Fort Worth, Texas. I can say that, right? That's public knowledge? Okay. We're not streaming, but this will go out later. So he's a television producer and director, produced stand-up comedy TV series. One was for Chad Prather.
Chad Prather, and then I did one for Cowboy Bill Martin.
Yeah,
for CMT. Yeah.
He's directed multiple music videos, including a number one for someone on CMT. I can't remember who.
Yeah, Sam Riggs.
And he produced a Live at Billy Bob's music series when he was in Fort Worth for at least 10 years. Member of the Academy of Country Music, and he's the host of Radio Update's Video Tips and Tricks series, which you have got to watch. It is like a masterclass for how radio should be doing video. He breaks it all down. He tries his best to be kind on some of the stations that aren't doing it. But all of us, have things we need to learn. I'm new to the video stuff myself, and Reynolds will see something I filmed, and he said, "I'm sending you a light, Andy. You look terrible." So he's helped me quite a bit on all that stuff. But definitely check out that series if you haven't already. And Jim Sherwood, I met Jim going on his podcast. He's the host of Better Radio Websites podcast. He was kind enough to come on mine as well. And the owner of Skyrocket Radio. He's the founder and chief strategist. They help radio stations build much better websites. If you're looking for somebody to help you with that, he's the guy. Because he's also a radio veteran. Worked at iHeart, CBS Radio, Cumulus. He's a Radio Update contributor. He writes some digital content for Radio Update as well that you need to check out. And an actual veteran. You were in the Navy.
I was.
Thank you for your service. And he did a morning show. You'll tell the story, but he did a morning show. He did a morning show on a ship, which is kind of an interesting thing to do. And Brent Hoodenpyle, another guy I've known for 20 years. He's the host of the Persuading for Profits podcast. He leads the Radio Revenue Blueprint workshop series that's going on now and for the next couple of months. He's a Radio Update contributor, and he was a play-by-play announcer when he was at Baylor University. So I got a question for everybody in here. How many of you have been in radio since the 90s or earlier? Show of hands. Okay, a couple of us. So I started programming in the mid to late 90s, somewhere around there. I grew up in radio, so I started young. I was a PD in a small market at 19, big market at 23, so I'm with you. I was also in radio in the 90s. And if I were to travel back in time and talk to young Jerry, young Aaron, or young John or young Andy, and tell us, in my day, the future, there'll be multiple places to share your content for free with listeners and non-listeners. Plus, every station can go live on a video platform everyone in the world is already using. And by the way, it's also free, YouTube. And they can easily showcase any other content and live stream video directly from their station websites, affordably, and video cameras have gotten smaller, cheaper, and exponentially faster. Plus, by the way, there's this thing called AI, and it's gotten so good, it can help you with literally every aspect of your job. John from the past, Jerry from the past, Aaron and Andy from the past would all go, wow, that's amazing. I bet you every radio station in the world is using that, especially every station in the United States, and we'd have to go, sadly, no, they're not. They're not all using all of those things. And that's kind of what I want to focus on today is with these experts up here giving their opinions, how can we in radio do a better job extending our brands to our station websites, to our social feeds, podcasting more and creating better podcasts so we don't disappoint that excited version of us from the 90s that would be so happy to hear that all these things are available now. As you can tell, that picture was AI generated because some of the band's names are misspelled. Why does AI struggle with spelling? It's a computer. I don't know. So this is what I was telling you about with RJ. I literally use him as an example to shows I coach that are struggling with how to do YouTube Lives because as a Cowboys fan, I stumbled upon his post game that is incredible. I want to show you a clip of this. This is probably from a year or two ago, but I picked a sad one, of course, like right after we lost to somebody in the playoffs.
But they certainly did everything that they could. The defense made this game winnable for the Dallas Cowboys, and the offense did not carry their end of the bargain, and that is such a frustrating thing to sit with for, 8 months at this point in time, so that is tough. Mikey Montano, thank you for the super chat. Sorry that you root for Arsenal. I'm not going to talk about that match either, but it says 4 is great for staying relevant, but is not the guy to take us over the hump. We're stuck in a pit with our tires spinning with 4. Literal purgatory. I'd still disagree with this. I mean, believe me, I'm not going to sit here and cape or make excuses for Dak Prescott, but and this sounds like an excuse, but you cannot put any quarterback in an offense that doesn't have any playmakers. I think Josh Allen's kind of in a similar boat. Stephon Diggs is amazing, but who do the Bills have that's like an amazing playmaker? And we kind of saw that be a limitation for them today. So you have to find a way. You have to get some more people involved. Again, Dak played awful. Dak had the opportunity. Santos Lozano, since Dak's not that guy. That is the moment that the Dallas Cowboys season ended.
So my question is pretty simple. How do you do that? And seems to me, watching it, that there's a whole bunch of people behind this production. Is that right? How are you pulling this off in real time, right after a game?
Well, this was following a playoff loss, which explains some of the passion, obviously, and this is utilizing a platform called StreamYard, which is very popular, allows you to... Oh, you're fine.
There you go.
All right, so again, following a Cowboys playoff loss a couple of years ago to the 49ers, and a show like that, especially after a loss, is honestly more intense than shows following big wins. It's just kind of the nature of human emotion. We utilize a service called StreamYard, which is very popular, and now, even well after that video, allows you to stream to multiple places all at once and seamlessly pull those comments up on the screen, whether they're coming from YouTube, whether they're coming from Twitch, whether they're coming from Instagram or Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. Whatever platform you're streaming to, it allows you to again, seamlessly pull those comments up on screen. You have a chat that allows you to do that. The color-coded ones are what YouTube specifically calls super chats, and those exist as a tip jar of sorts. If you tip $5 or $10, on the YouTube side of things, it holds at the top of the chat longer so that everybody else can see what you're offering to the greater good. And I run this by myself. It doesn't involve a producer. In this case, I'm constantly managing the comments on the same screen where I see myself and the produced ultimate product, whether it's myself or if we have some sort of graphic overlay or if we're playing a highlight, and just kind of measuring what comment makes sense. And these comments are visible on the back end, not necessarily to the front end audience. And so it allows me to kind of view, Andy commented this. Let me steer into this conversation so that I can pull Andy's comment up on screen. And more than anything, I think beyond additional context, it provides a level of value to Andy, the consumer, to different people, in that they are a part of the show. They drive the show. I don't put together any kind of rundown. It's pretty obvious, obviously, you know, after a game that you're going to talk about X, Y, and Z. But if a player, in this case, Dak Prescott, upsets someone or triggers someone and people want to talk about that, we're going to use their material, and they're sort of riding the show as we go along. And I think that's why people tend to enjoy it.
Yeah, I'm a fan. I watch it every win or lose. I watch it every Sunday. John, you host a video tips and tricks series for Radio Update. I want to play a quick clip of this. I think you're talking about Rogan.
I've been asked to look at examples of radio stations and podcasters that are doing a great job of creating video. And so I've got several different examples, and this one we're going to talk about today. It can be very polarizing, but we're going to look at the Joe Rogan experience. Let's get into it. Okay, so this example is he is at his studio in Austin, and even though this is, I think, one of the largest, the biggest, most money-making, largest watched podcasts in the country, their video setup is very basic, okay? But that's okay. Basic is good as long as it's done right. So what they do, everything is lit from overhead. They are being very unintrusive with any types of lighting or anything in. This one's got Gary Clark Jr. in it. Behind him is just this curtain. Now the curtain's there for a couple things. One, to cover up whatever's behind them, doors and things. But I know it's a good sound absorption. It's also a good light absorption. So if there are lights in this room, you don't see any of the reflections because that felt or velvet or whatever it is absorbs it.
So obviously, I mean, that's a podcast. It looks eerily similar to a radio studio, as we've talked, but you've also looked at a lot of radio stations across the country. What's one thing that really stood out to you looking at that radio station video content?
One thing that stood out to me, well, when it comes to, like, for instance, like this Joe Rogan experience, it's a very basic setup, and it's effective. But then you look at things like, there's a radio station out of the Philippines called Wish FM, and they have a mobile bus that travels around that they have tricked out on the inside with a full recording studio. But what's so great about this, they have a big budget. Now, when they started off, it was very ma and pa, and then it grew over time. But it's a very professional setup with moving cameras, wonderful lighting. It's very engaging because they'll take it to festivals and places. So outside the windows, you can see all the people gathering around. So it's very engaging. And the audio is recorded at a very high level. And you don't see any of the behind the curtain. You don't see camera operators or engineers, or you don't see lights hanging from the ceiling or the mics. I mean, it's all done in a very high professional way. So that's like one side of it, that is the high-end side of it. But then I can also think of something that is on the other end that works out really well. Is example, the Ranch, which is a radio station. Some of you know it more than others in this room, but they do this thing maybe it's once a week or once a month, but it's the Texas countdown. It's the songs that are in the top that they're playing on their station, or I don't know exactly how they come up with that, but it's a very basic setup where they've got a host. I don't think this is an on-air talent, it's someone in their office, but the script is literally the countdown, and she's talking right to an iPhone that's on some sort of stand. There's a single light over it, and the script dictates what she's saying, and then they use cutaways of the album covers or shots of the artist and things. It's a very simple type of content that can be created. It literally writes itself, and they do a great job of it. And it's just something where you can't be afraid to create content and kind of look for it everywhere. Radio stations, the biggest thing when creating content is actually being able to tell the story or have something to talk about. And that's what you do every day, all day long. So that kind of, the hardest part is really already done. So,
yeah.
Is that sponsored?
I'm sure it is, yeah. I'm sure it is. Yeah.
Jerry, is that sponsored?
Yes, not as much as we want.
Well, that's always the case.
Yeah.
Jim, you host the Better Radio Websites podcast. Here's a clip of that.
Best ways that you can do user-generated content is to do.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, get him a sound.
Let me look like an old man.
Yeah. Just get it
No,
out.
that's the line. Here we go. Brent, I was making fun of you earlier, and this is the karma that I get. Okay.
Welcome to Better Radio Websites, the podcast that will help you get more visitors and the most revenue from your radio station.
Best ways that you can do user-generated content is to do the things that are around you locally, and one station is really knocking it out of the park.
We bought this station about 3 years ago. We got the normal website with the purchase, but they really weren't doing much with it. You could tune in, listen to them, that kind of stuff. But we decided to be that newspaper and be the sports news and everything, really go after it. And our numbers have exceeded our local newspaper online reading. My end of years this year, so 23, we put 59,000 gross on the books on this website. And that's all because of this young lady right here. And some creative ideas that Matthew, her husband, had. By the way, my daughter, so I'm proud of her.
Family business.
Long story short, it did take some staff, but it's made us more of a media company, I think, than just a radio company, because radio's already getting hit in the chops. And so what can you do as a station to build that? And I think, the kids have done a really great job with us.
So Jim, can you share more of their success story or others that you talked about on the podcast?
Sure, yeah. Steve, he come from the car business, and when he took over the stations, he didn't really, the website was just a listen live button and a blurry picture of the logo and some address to the station. So he didn't really have he knew he had to do a little bit better with the website, but he didn't really have really big ambitions for it. He thought he was going to make, $4 to $6 grand. He would have been happy with making that per year with the radio station. And as you heard, they're billing almost $60,000 with their website, and it's because of his daughter, who said, "Look, we need to do local news and local weather and obituaries and stuff like that," and they didn't have anybody. They hired a news person to do on-air news, and part of his gig was to replicate everything that he did for the website. And as you can see, they're bringing in tons of money just by being the local news hub and information hub, not just a radio station, not just a listen live button.
And you said the market size, right?
They're in Arkansas City, Kansas, very, very small.
Yeah.
And I mean, they really only cover about four counties.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Brent, you host the Persuading for Profits podcast for Radio Update, where you talk to a lot of sales and marketing experts from other industries as well as radio to get their thoughts on radio. Let's play a clip of that.
And now with all the little streaming things, with all the avenues available to us, with all the, I spend this much and I get this many clicks and I get this many hits and all that's hyper measurable. How does radio transmit or convey that it's still a viable resource today to people, to salespeople who weren't exposed to it back in its heyday when it was the big boy on the block and commanded all the respect?
Radio remains the most cost-effective tool I use for clients, without exception. I reach more people more effectively, more efficiently, and at a cost per production that can't be compared. And so when you look at radio for reaching mass, which is the first thing you have to do, right? It's great. I mean, I will tell you that TV, local television, local affiliate television gives it a race.
What's something else that one of those experts has said that really stood out to you?
Well, I mean, that's Charlie Moser. He's from the Wizard of Ads, Gulf Coast. And he's honestly the first person that really I heard make a really good case for radio. I kind of feel radio itself is kind of absent in that conversation. There's a great case to be made for radio for local businesses for exactly what he's talking about there. We had some great people on. We've had some, I recently had like the #1 or top 1% door-to-door solar sales guy on. He was a former high school basketball coach that quit his job and sold solar. That's some great tips. So great tips for salespeople. I also had Jim Clock on, who does a direct response radio show. He works with home services businesses, and he buys bulk airtime on the weekends and does like a radio infomercial, and he crushes it as well too. So it's kind of interesting. Mojer is coming at it from a branding, which is a traditional radio way to serve clients, and Clock comes up from a purely direct response way, and both ways are successful. And I think, for local businesses that everybody's focused on digital, radio is such a great product right now and such a great way. Digital's way too egalitarian. If you're digital, you can have a guy that's been in business for 25 years and some dude that's been there by 2 weeks, and they can look pretty much the same. Radio is a differentiator that can get you above the crowd that digital really can't do.
Yeah, I like hearing that. RJ, I mean, you've been creating video content for a pretty good while now. What's one thing you've learned creating video content that you wish you'd known when you started doing it?
I think that there's a pressure for video content to be highly polished, and obviously you want that. Obviously that's preferred, but I think that in my world, that is a world of sports, there are weird things that happen. The Dallas Cowboys play every Thanksgiving, as an example, that kind of force you to adjust your life. And so I've done live shows in my car. I've done live shows on the side of the road. I've done live shows, on the beach. I've done them from my phone. I've done them from my computer. I've done them in studios. And I think that there's a level of, intimacy that kind of offers the audience, and it helps build and foster the connection and the relationship that I have with our audience. And I think that that's something that you're unwilling to explore at the very beginning. You feel like, man, it doesn't look the way SportsCenter looks. And so I wish earlier in my career I would have been more willing to just post it. Aaron said it last night when we were kind of chatting. In a world of content, like posting it, that could be your one. That could be your introduction to Andy. That could be your introduction to whoever that wouldn't see you otherwise because they happen to be on their phone at that specific moment in time.
Yeah, it's hard for me to get my mind around because this is not how I'm built, but volume is more important than quality when it comes to that. And I know both are important, but volume is, if you had to pick one of the two, volume is a little more important, wouldn't you say?
I wouldn't say it like that. I would say that there's there's a place that you're willing to make some exceptions, right? Like if Micah Parsons were traded while I was, on vacation, that's not a matter where I say, you know what, like this can wait. Like that's a moment where I'm willing to compromise for the sake of what it actually is. And that there's some, kind of measurement that you do internally and that the subject, I think, kind of does, in a mandatory way for you. But so it is ultimately about, this is worth it. And I think there's a joy in that. There's within your audience, your most loyal and devoted, followers, there's the level of, man, remember when that happened? Remember when you did that show in your car? That was crazy. And then there becomes this sense of, FOMO within the audience. Oh man, I didn't watch that one, and I want to go watch that now. I want to go watch this thing that was breaking news 3 years ago, just so I get the inside joke next time. And you build that up over time. So I wouldn't quite put it that way. I don't fully disagree with you, but it is a measurement that you make within yourself.
Yeah. John, if I'm a radio station that isn't doing anything at all with video right now, what's the first thing I should do?
I'd say get started. So kind of like what you're talking about, I really believe you should kind of build the plane while you're flying it, and like get out there, and the more you do it, the better you're going to get at it. And if it's a terrible show, it'll just disappear into the ether.
No one's watching it anyway.
Yeah, and no one's going to watch it anyway. It's like, so
it disappears off the internet.
so my advice is just get going and start doing it.
There is a delete button on YouTube.
Yeah.
You look.
Yeah. But I'd say some kind of advice that I would tell people, that I would tell you, is find someone in your organization that can have ownership over it. And really, what I see a lot is where these stations will spend money on a nice studio, setting it up for video, so you can kind of flip the switch and go and create this stuff. But over time, lights burn out, cords start showing, the camera gets bumped. Things just don't look the same, and there's no one there on their staff that has ownership of it. And so over time it starts looking bad, and then that's not what you want. You start off, I've seen it where they've started off great, and then 2 years later the same setup looks terrible. But if you have somebody who has ownership over it, they have that eye, they'll take care of it, and they'll make sure that there's a consistent look to it.
Yeah, I like that a lot. Jim, this week you wrote an article for Radio Update where you made a great point. For stations to be taken seriously in digital, their own house needs to be in order. Can you kind of expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, the article was about selling digital, and whether it's selling your own website or if you're selling all of these other services that are out there, like text messages, SEO, you're selling websites, you're selling all of these other things. There's so many opportunities for radio to jump in the digital space, but the article was about making sure that you're your first client, to be sure that everything that you're out there selling, you're out there promoting to clients, that you are the expert yourself. So make yourself your very own first client, that your website is optimized for SEO and you're hitting all the tags and everything like that. A lot of folks think that you need a company to do SEO services. You don't need that. You can do the proper things right with your own website, and SEO takes care of itself. Those are things that you can sell to your clients, but just be sure that your website is, do you have experience with Facebook ads or TikTok this or whatever like that, geo-targeting. There's so many options out there, but so the article was just about being sure that your website and that your company, you're your very first client, and that you know everything, and that when somebody has a question about one of these things, that you can be knowledgeable about it. And because one of the things that frustrates me more than anything, I'm talking to somebody who's trying to sell me something, and I'm about to say yes, but then I have a question about a particular nuance of whatever it is, and then it totally blindsides them, and they don't know anything about the answer and about what I'm asking, and so that sends a negative feeling to me, and I'm like, okay, I really don't think that you're the right person for this, because you couldn't answer this, fringe question that I had.
Yeah. Well, the line that the car mechanic with the broken car line that stuck out to me, because my longtime mechanic one time loaned me his car, and it broke down halfway home. Never went back to that mechanic again. So it's a great analogy for it. Brent, ultimately, everything we do in radio obviously has to be underwritten. What's some low-hanging digital fruit radio should be selling more of right now?
Well, I think radio just needs to be a stronger voice making the case for radio. My own experience, I was calling a few months ago, just calling some stations for airtime quotes and things like that. And for me, from a digital side, I came across a lot of contact us pages. Some were better than others. Some I filled out a form I never heard back from. Some I called the number multiple times. And the problem is that radio stations are stretched thin these days. That person that is on that contact us page for the advertise with us page may be doing 3 other jobs.
Yeah.
So I honestly think that one thing that radio could do is whenever somebody's on that page, they are most interested in giving you money. So you want to capture that lead right away. Instead of just having a form there, make it a full-on sales page. Use benefit-driven copy. Use a welcome video. Validate them for being there. Start doing. It's like you just talked about in your clip. Is like the defense set it up for the offense. So that's what your page does. It tees it up for the salespeople to make their job easier. And then it also starts the process and starts the conversation going. And with everything, if you have a good sales page as your contact us page, you can follow up with people automatically. Your sales staff doesn't have to do that. But the main thing is that it then gives you a destination page that you can link to from your social media, from your YouTube, from your LinkedIn. Now you can say, hey, here's a case study we just put out, go download it on our page. Right there, somebody will do that. That gets them in the game of talking about your station, and it does all that on automatic pilot for you. And it really, in a way, you kind of turn the tables on digital, and you're using digital to get clients back on your airwaves, which is kind of ironic and fun just in itself. So that's the biggest low-hanging fruit I would see from a digital standpoint.
Is that, don't you have an example of that? Is that what this QR code you have me load is?
No, that's a different QR. I have an example, and actually did it show up right? If you go to the QR code, I'll actually send you the mock-up of that page. And there's I kind of go over all the elements in that page. So if you click on that, I'll send it to you. It won't go out instantly. I'll send it to you in the morning. But there's kind of a lot of elements that are in there that will make it just, I think, help.
RJ, since you cover the Cowboys, a team that, and you kind of already hit this, but I want to take you in a different direction with it. I mean, Cowboys are always making headlines, and you have to drop what you're doing. If you're at dinner and you've had a glass of wine, you still gotta jump on video and do something about it. How do we take that same mentality to music radio, to our on-air talent on music stations, to approach it that way, that when Ozzy Osbourne passes away, we jump on the air. We don't wait till the weekend to do a Ozzy tribute. We do it that day, immediately. How do we get them more in that mindset to think that way?
When people ask me what I do and like what my title is, like content creator comes up, podcast or whatever, at its core, I always feel like I'm a blogger. That's the thing that kind of began my career. And to be a blogger, you really have to just grind. I mean, you really have to be willing to write about, you have to find different ways to kind of separate yourself. And I think a blogger's sort of disposition is okay, no one's doing this. This story broke at midnight. Why would I wait till 8 a.m. tomorrow? Because 8 a.m. tomorrow is 4 days from now in terms of a real news cycle. And so when Ozzy Osbourne passes away, in a non-sports world, if you have some talent and you don't have a show that's on, but your talent is at home and your talent has a computer or a phone, your talent should be on your station's Instagram account talking about what did Ozzy Osbourne mean to you? What did Ozzy Osbourne mean to me? What were my favorite songs? I saw him here. We played him here. This was just the anniversary. This was just his show. I mean, you have to establish those personal connections in that moment, because waiting comes at a serious price, because we live in a day and age where you're waiting till your show at 9 a.m. the next morning, but somebody else is live right now on Instagram, and somebody else is live on TikTok, and somebody else is recording a podcast that's going to go out about this. And tomorrow there's going to be different information that you can react to on your show, and you can reference that you did a live reaction, even if it wasn't on your primary channel of distribution, if that's your radio station or whatever the case may be. It may seem tangential to you in that it's just your Instagram account, but it's its own individual property that has monetization potential, that has just clout potential. And you can, even if you truly feel like this should go out tomorrow, then play a clip and promote it, like Brent was talking about, in your show that you were ideally curating material for, and say, yeah, you know what, this is obviously a horrible example, somebody passing away, but you bake in people that next time something ever happens, we're going to do a live show, and you sort of promote your own self within your own action.
Yeah, and you become dependable. Whenever, if you keep doing that, and that's how you build your audience, and that one platform could reach out to you and then promote your other platforms.
And you, to your point about the mechanic, you become an authority. It becomes a matter of, man, I know I know something happens, I can trust that they're going to be live right away, because who cares tomorrow? I mean, tomorrow I will feel differently about this and a million other things.
Right, that's the world we now
Right.
live in, love it or hate it.
Yeah.
John, if you were in charge of, did you want to expand on that?
Well, I just had a quick story here, is that I live in South Bend, Indiana. That's the home of Notre Dame. And a few months ago, I have a brand that promotes South Bend, and it's all things living there, it's the culture, it's everything. And a press release came out from Notre Dame saying that they're going to start serving beer in the stadium, which is a huge thing, believe it or not. And so within a minute of that, I used ChatGPT to create a original image. I had this idea of God reaching down from the heavens and handing a frothy glass of beer to the stadium. And so, I threw it in there, and within a minute, I had this image up, and I posted it on my South Bend Local Instagram account. And it took off. So I had hundreds of thousands of reposts. The local radio stations all picked it up. It was literally like everywhere. I heard about it everywhere. People were telling me about it, like, hey, did you see that thing? And I was like, yeah, that's me, So it took off from the whole thing. But it's like being able to be instant with what's going on. It
wouldn't have worked if you'd waited a day.
Not at all. Yeah, it was the first thing people saw,
right.
About that subject. Yeah,
timely and topical. By tomorrow, they've moved on.
Right.
If you were in charge of building a radio studio that was video friendly, what are some things that you would put in it? What's some things that you wouldn't put in it?
Yeah, I think I would make it very flexible in the space. Things that drive me kind of crazy about a lot of these are the big mic, the arm that comes across. There's ways to do that's visually pleasing, and there's ways to do it wrong. Down coming up, but also if you have multiple cameras and people are like you and I are looking at each other, your mic doesn't need to come from here. My mic doesn't need to come from here. There's a way that it should be set up to visually be pleasing. So that would be what would be the first thing I would think of when setting up that studio, is making sure that the camera angles make sense as camera angles. I'd also look at making sure that your backgrounds, there's a lot of kind of LED lightings that you can do that can change the mood, change whatever, but yet still fit within your branding. So I would incorporate that into it. And then as I see a lot more people now, especially like the BBC does this on their Radio 1, almost all of their studios are video friendly. And they use a lot of LED walls, but very small panels that are behind them. And it's able to have like an image of their logo, but also if they're talking to an artist, the artist's album, different things can pop up behind it. It's very inexpensive, and it looks really good.
Yeah, and if you got a quote a couple of years ago, that's totally out the window now. They're a lot cheaper than
thousands of dollars instead of tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of dollars. It's very doable.
Jim, I'm a big believer in the content to ads ratio, because I think too many stations are kind of NASCAR'd out. That's probably the best way to put it. How many ads should a radio website have on it, above the fold and total on the homepage, in your opinion?
Well, I'm glad you said in my opinion, because if you were asked, general managers out here, it would be NASCAR'd out. My opinion on that, gosh, I have I think it should be minimal. I think it should be smart. Ads should rotate in a particular ad block. Ads should rotate there and not be NASCAR'd out. I do have stations that if you look on their homepage, it is like news story ad, news story ad, news story ad, news story ad. Different ones, all sold. And I asked the general manager, don't you think that's a little bit busy? Oh, no, that's content. Folks in town want to know that a certain store is having this sale or is going out of business and this thing is going on at the local car dealership or whatever like that. That's content. Okay, but it looks like an ad. And so it was an argument that it was not won. But I think it should be minimal. I think it should be smart. You don't want to overwhelm. Folks come to your website for content.
Yeah.
And so that's what the first thing that they should see.
Well, that kind of, so I'm not telling people wrong then, because the way I kind of put it is desktop needs more content than ads above the fold is the big way to kind of do it. And then on mobile, kind of a one-to-one at the most, right?
Very much so.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm not lying. Brent, you have a digital marketing background as well. What grade would you give radio as an industry for how we market our stations digitally, and why would you give us that grade? Putting you on the spot.
Well, it just seems, radio seems absent. I mean, most of the great stuff I hear about radio hasn't really come from radio. I feel radio is, I'm from a digital background. And I've worked for some really big companies, and you can get maxed out on digital. You spend enough on digital, and all of a sudden, you're just around, it's like going from high school to college to the NFL. You haven't separated. You're just around other people spending a lot on digital too, and you're still trying to separate yourself. And I've watched people in this space, coming from the outside in, and they're like, I don't want to do radio. And they're like, okay, maybe I'm open to radio. And it's like, I should have done this 20 years ago, right? Because in the digital world, you're building, you're growing, then you're maintaining, which is the hardest part, and you're looking for that separation. And then once you get in radio in a local level, I just think gives you that better than anything else. And then after that, you're also looking for valuation. You're like, okay, now I want to sell this thing and get out. And so you do that. You have to have a company with a good brand, and you can't get that really from digital. Not like you can from a third party like radio. I think that as far as a grade, I don't really see that it's failing. I just see it's missing out on a ton of great opportunities to every day make the case for radio. Radio is so great at branding itself with its listeners. It's music, it's religion, it's politics, it's your favorite team. It's all the things people love. And radio broadcasts that, and they're so good at branding it. But with advertisers, I think they could do a lot better job. There are a ton of great statistics about why radio is good. I think radio stations should lead with testimonials and case studies. If you have a good case study, man, you can spread that all over and just lure people to you all day long. You're not chasing anymore.
I'm hearing C. So we're not failing.
No, not at all.
Maybe D. Is D failing? Okay. Does anybody in the audience have any questions? This mic is super loud, I have to hold it close.
So, RJ, question for you. How do you get around copyright issues? Because I know the NFL especially is like strict about it.
So when it comes to YouTube, if you use a highlight, which you can rip from Twitter or whatever the case may be, that will get flagged. And so that is kind of a judgment call that you need to make, or I need to make, right? Like if there's a particularly volatile moment or something that absolutely has to be discussed, then I think it's worth eating that video, not being able to be monetized in the name of reaching an audience, right? Like there's still worth in that. In the case of the super chats we talked about, like you still get those if you're purely in it for the fiscal and financial reasons. But otherwise, I mean, I can go live for an hour and put graphics on screen and whatnot, and that's completely and totally, usable from a rights standpoint.
And then second question for John, you said just start what's the sweet spot for how long?
Yeah, I mean, I really think the shorter the better. So you got to think of like, what are you shooting, and what is it? Is it a morning show? Is it an interview or something? And then it's just breaking that down into short clips and throwing it up on, TikTok or Instagram or Facebook or whatever. Long form is great, right? But you almost have to kind of really, what makes long form successful is they would take clips from that long form to help build the audience. If you're just instantly, oh, look, here's a podcast that's an hour long. I don't know who this person is. I'm not going to be interested in watching it. But I'll watch a 30-second clip and go, okay, great. Now I'm familiar with this person, or I'm comfortable with this presenter to sit around and watch an hour show. So.
Yeah, and the stats back it up. So YouTube's stats, 500 hours of video content is uploaded every minute to YouTube. 2.6 million long-form videos are uploaded daily. Guess how many shorts? 12 million shorts are uploaded daily. So people can tell, and the reason we're all doing that is because the algorithm favors the shorts. And like he said, it's very hard to get someone to commit to watch an hour of someone they've never met. But they'll give us 30 seconds, they'll give us 60 seconds. So out of any hour-long content, you should be able to pull a minimum of 10 shorts, if not 20. And you can use AI for that. And it makes it super freaking easy. I can tell you a bunch of different platforms to use that are cheap. But yeah, so the stats absolutely back up what you said. Anybody else?
Something I would just add, from the clip that you shared of John, he had text on screen. And that's a really, really valuable tool. Because think about how often you're browsing your phone and you don't have the volume up, or you're at dinner, or you're somewhere, but you can read what John said because he put that there. Like, that's such an important distinction from one video to another.
You know where we're all watching content. We're on the toilet. You just didn't want to say that. Anybody else? All right, we actually finished on time with 4 panelists. Are you kidding me? Y'all must be ready to head to the bar. Thank you so much.
Again, if you have any thoughts or questions after watching that panel discussion, email them to me at andy@radiostationconsultant.com or editor@radioupdate.com. As always, if you have some thoughts you'd like to share on this or any other hot radio topic, submit an article about it by emailing submissions@radioupdate.com. Thanks for listening, watching, and reading. We'll be back next week with a new episode of Radio Influencers. Radio Influencers is a Radio Update production. New episodes are released on Tuesdays at 10 a.m. Eastern.